Yeah, hey Matt. In the first Penn State game, the offensive glass for them was a pretty big deal. Is that kind of priority number one going into this one?
Yeah, and just trying to stop them in transition. Hopefully, we can do a good job executing. And obviously, we struggle to shoot in the game also. So it's you take a lot of threes and you're going to get a lot of long misses. That sometimes puts you in tough spots from a transition defensive standpoint. But yeah, like giving up 23 offensive rebounds and 10 to one guy, like we have to be able to reward ourselves after getting a stop by rebounding the ball. So that it's going to be a real important part of the game.
You'd mentioned a couple weeks ago that, as important as these last few games are, the most important thing is that you guys are playing pretty well, come March. You see
Right.
your team trending in the right direction in that regard, where you think maybe you can be playing your best basketball here in a couple weeks?
Well, you hope so. Sometimes, who you play, when you play them, where you play them, comes into effect. And so, even though you might get some losses, it doesn't mean you're not, playing good basketball at that time. But yeah, that's what we're trying to do. I don't think that's an answer, yes or no, for anybody at this time.
Mhm.
But that's what we're all trying to do. Is I think small things can flick you back and forth, and you can't let that happen. Like you have to be steady, you have to be consistent. You have to play through calls, you got to play through injuries, you got to just have some mental toughness because it gets really, really hard. Late February, early March. In the regular season because the games matter so much to everybody.
Is there a biggest piece of the puzzle you want to see continue to keep falling into place here for your team going into March? Is it getting Sasha up to speed? Is it just continuing to improve with the freshmen from a defensive perspective? Anything like that? What are kind of your hot buttons right now?
Yeah, just trying to get guys to take pride and be efficient in doing their job. I know very general, big picture answer, but it's true. Like we just way too many defensive breakdowns in the last game. Lack of execution, guys not doing things, running plays, guys not paying attention in huddles, guys not paying attention to defensive assignments and having breakdowns. And like a lot of times you look at it as like a coach picking at you, but there was a lot of incidents where we just, didn't have our computer plugged into the wall in the last game. And, we played well in the second half, played better in the second half. But like we got to get across the board for the people that play, whether you start or you don't start. You have to be able to know what's going on defensively, and you have to be able to guard. And then offensively, we have to be on the same page in what we're running and what we're doing and be able to execute and understand what the defense is trying to do to take that away. Those two areas are very big picture, whole type perception of where we are. But like we have to be, whether you're young or old at this point, you've played a lot of games. You have to be good in those areas, and we got to continue to grow in those areas. We have to be much better.
Can you speak to what Brandon's done lately in terms of being a more complete player and not, allowing offense to dictate what he does defensively, if that's what you're seeing?
Yeah. I think it's each game just understanding the different breakdowns and the different kind of drills that we do defensively to lead into the game. I've really taken notice of the little things and being detail oriented. I think for him and a lot of our guys, when we have a focus there, it really helps us when things go, especially when things go at game speed, and just trying to get better, each game, through things. He's got to learn to move the ball more. He's got to learn to take what the defense gives him, and then defensively, just stick to our rules. When he gets off of our rules is when he has breakdowns. Just stick to our rules, be detailed, whether that's ball screen defense and staying into the ball or having high hands or jumping to the basketball. Just a lot of fundamental type things, just being consistent in those areas. That's what he's just got to keep, striving to do and not play through his offense. He's a good shooter. He's a guy that can move and shoot, but he's also a guy that will try to do too much at times, and he just puts himself in a bad spot when he does that. He just has to let the game come to him and keep it simple.
Just one last thing for me. It's February 25th. I don't know how eager you are to be changing your starting lineup, changing your rotations wholesale. what does that mean for Sasha moving forward, and what would you need from him, if anything different coming off the bench? And what's your message to him just in that kind of new setting?
Yeah, just play, be ready to play. Play the game the right way. Just like I talk about anybody else. There's not a, it's just a little bit different when you come off the bench, and you got to get yourself ready to go, and then all of a sudden you got to wait to play. And there lies the difference. You get yourself ready to play, and you start the game. So, but we'll keep looking at things and trying to do what's best for our team. Obviously, when there's changes, we had a couple of changes early in the year with Eric and with Jaden, and then we had a change obviously with Sasha. Doesn't mean anything's permanent. So we'll always look at things and try to do what's the best, but also keep in mind, how you play and your consistent play is more important than starting or not starting. But you still want to give yourself as a coach the best chance to get off to good starts. And to get off to good starts in the first half, get off to good starts in the second half. Obviously, the finishing is more important.
I'm good. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, do you feel like you're in a win-win situation regardless of who starts at that position, because you either bring Jaden off the bench or Sasha off the bench, and that's a luxury other teams really don't have?
Yeah, I think it's a good problem to have. I think you're in a tough time as a coach when you have 3 to 4 starters. Obviously, you have to start 5, but if you have 7 or 8 starters, that's a good situation. Zach Edey has been pretty productive for us, especially when you're productive in some limited minutes. And so he's proven he can go in there, and whether he gets 8 minutes or gets 15 minutes or gets 20 minutes, he can be productive in all those roles. Not every time, but through the course of the year, he's done a pretty good job with that. Other people struggle a little bit more when they have lesser minutes. And that stinks, because that's kind of where you are then. And now you got to learn to be better in your role. You got to learn to be more efficient in your role. So to be able to have, those opportunities kind of present themselves because of injuries and COVID, it allows other people to step up. It allows more opportunity, but it also makes you as a coach, you never have just normally a strong yes or a strong no. It can go either way. And anytime there's change in lineups, and we said this before when we had change, you want the change both ways. If something would happen, you want the guy who's starting to be able to play better because he's starting, but you also want the guy who's not starting to play better because he's not starting. It's rarely looked at that way, but it's true. You can have 2 positive responses from that. The guy normally not starting is going to take it as a demotion, even though a lot of times it's not technically a demotion, even though at times it can be. It's just you feel like that particular group with that guy would start a game better, or you feel like they are just better together. Sometimes it's not one guy's better than the other, but who's better with the blend of the other 4 people.
All righty. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dakota?
Yeah, Coach, just one for me. I know you've been asked this a couple of times, but obviously the offensive rebounding for Penn State was key for them keeping it close the first time around. What do they do well in addition to that, and what are going to be some of the challenges that you're going to face tomorrow night?
Well, they have a lot of interchangeable pieces. They really play with Dredd and Lundy as their 4s. Those guys are really big guards, so they play a lot of interchangeable, long, athletic. Brockington is very high octane athletic guy. He can crash the glass, he can drive the basketball. Those other 2 guys can really shoot it, but they can get on the glass too. They chase rebounds down as much as they, like Haraz is a guy that'll just bully you, and he just goes hard every time. He's the epitome of what you're supposed to do from offensive rebound. He might be one of the best in the country, if not the best, in terms of his effort, because he just tries to get it every time. And if you go every single time, you're probably going to get 3 or 4 of them, and that puts you up there as one of the top in our league, one of the top in the country. So they're just a resilient group, and they took us to the woodshed the first time. So hopefully we have some guys that got some pride, and they want to lay wood and box people out and go get the basketball. Because if you're just going to go get the basketball against Penn State, you're going to get some of them, but you're not going to get all of them. Then if it's just going to be an effort jumping contest and there's going to be no bodies put on, Penn State's going to get their fair share of those. We got to do a better job boxing out.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.